Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored. Today I'm very proud to be able to preview for you the Earth Abundance expansion, which is going to be crowdfunded soon. This is the first expansion for Earth from Inside Up Games and, well, adds a few new things that you can be doing on your turn, as well as a whole heap of cards to the deck. And of course, just note that I've been playing with a prototype. There are going to be some changes. There's already been some changes in the rules since I started playing with this expansion, so just know things might be tweaked and changed, but this is what the expansion is like right now. What does the expansion offer to you? Well, it's got a couple of tweaks to the base game rules. It has a board, so a sixth player could be playing Earth with you at any one point, as well as new cubes and tree trunk things, so you've got all of the components that you can actually play with that sixth player, and, well, seeds, as well as these sort of little player board bits, which offer you the new sort of symbology at the bottom as the reminder, as well as the new conversions that you can do with seeds on your turn. Before we get into the thick of it, or at least the seeds of it, let's go over those rule changes. Well, first of all, sprouts. Sprouts can now be stored on your player board, not just on cards. Though, if you can be adding them to cards, that's where you should be putting them first. Then they sort of build up. If you haven't got space for sprout cubes, they can build up now on your player board. They can also be spent from your player board in the same way. If you're doing that old conversion of sort of sprouts to soil, that's absolutely fine to be done from your player board. But that's a relatively big change that we'll come back to. The other change is that for completing your grid, it's no longer 7 points that you get. There's a tile, a little token that you're going to put down that gives someone 11 points. Now that's not the first player gets 11, the second player still gets the 7. No, it's just an upgrade from 7 to 11 points for finishing your grid first. Okay, now let's talk about the seeds, which are the new resource type, though, well, maybe not the resource that you're going to be using the most of with that change to sprouts. Seeds are this new resource that you can convert in and out of in different ways. Much like in the base game where you can spend 3 sprout cubes to get 2 soil, well, you can spend 4 sprout cubes to get a seed. You're also going to start the game with a seed, and there's also many cards that are going to give you seeds for maybe triggering them as part of an action. So maybe when someone's taking the plant action, your green ability is giving you a seed, that sort of thing. Akin to that swapping of sprouts to soil, you can do that sort of trade at any time on your turn, as long as it's not in the middle of another action, and you can also do it the other way. So this is where seeds can be used for a variety of things. Seeds can become 3 sprout cubes. They could become 3 compost from the top of the deck, 4 compost from your hand, 2 soil, 2 growth tokens, which I'll probably have referred to already as tree trunks because that's what I call them, or you can do a new thing which is search. Now this is a really cool thing, and I think goes some way to maybe get that annoyance of a big deck out the way. Effectively, you can trade a seed in and say, I want to look for a card with this stat or this thing. So that could be, I want it to have a blue triggering ability. It might be, I wanted it to cost less than 3 soil, or maybe I need it to have a water or frost symbol on it, or any of those sort of ones. Maybe it's a mushroom type fauna. Any of those sort of things, you can say, I want the next card in the deck. You turn the cards over from the top of the deck until you find the first card that satisfies that. Whether you like it or not, that's the card you get for spending that seed. So let's say you had indeed said, I want a card with a red ability on it. You turn the top card over, it's not got one. The next card, it does. It's a bit of a bad card, but it has the red ability. You take that into your hand. So it's a nice new way of actually getting cards, that you just maybe want to play for abilities, but also for scoring objectives, because you can look at the scoring objectives in the middle and now go, well, I've got a few seeds and maybe I'm only a few cards away from doing that thing, you know, maybe having 6 cards with water droplet symbols on them. Well, maybe I'll search the deck for a couple of those and then try and get them played into my grid and complete that objective in the middle. So that's what the seeds can do for you, and it really does seem to open up your options. There's also a whole load new cards that are added into the game. There's a few objectives, a few of those sort of setup style cards, but mostly it's the normal Earth cards that are going to be added into the mix. Now, these are going to be slightly tweaked because on some of mine, the symbology, they've noticed, doesn't quite match what it should be because I think they've sort of upgraded the symbology a little bit. But these do seem to increase the interaction between players, and actually, quite massively, actually changes your thought process sometimes between triggering abilities or not. And what I mean by that is, there's certain cards which say you get 2 seeds. Those seeds, well, there's a lot of flexibility there. They could be sprouts, they could be soil, they could help you find a card in the deck. That's really cool. But hang on a minute, I get that, but all of my opponents get, say, 4 sprout cubes. All of a sudden, I have a real predicament. Do I really want to take those seeds, activating that ability? Because I'm gonna give everyone else something. And it's almost more the choice rather than the interaction that I think that sort of card adds to this experience. I like that because it's not always just you do this, they get that. It's often now a case of, do I want to trigger that? Am I just helping that other player have enough sprouts that then on a future turn they can trade them in for soil, plant something and maybe end the game? It's just another nice little extra choice that's going to go through your head. There's also other cards which do things based on your neighbours, which is something not seen previously. And it's like maybe you gain a number of, say, maybe soil or sprout cubes or something, depending on how many cards of a certain type your neighbours have, or one of your neighbours at least. All of a sudden, I care what you're putting into your grid. And that was not something that has ever really been cared about in Earth, more than, well, they're slightly ahead of that objective card, or, oh, they've got 15 cards down, they're very close to ending the game, like that sort of thing. Like, you don't normally care other than that. All of a sudden, now, oh, I'm also wanting to know how many bushes you've got, or how many cards with the golden sort of ability have you got, like those endgame scoring ones, or like card reduction costs. How many of those have you got? So again, it just adds a little bit of interactivity, but it's only with your neighbours, so you don't have to care what the person like really far away from you has got for that sort of thing. So some interactivity has been sort of added in, but I think it's much more about choices. All of a sudden, I need to know what you've got to work out if playing this card is beneficial to me or not. I'm activating this ability because it gets me a lot more, it gets me 2 seeds, but it's getting you some sprouts. Do I want that? Do I want to give all of you sprouts? And sometimes it's give one player a soil or a couple of sprouts, but often they are, you get a big benefit and you're giving everyone else a little benefit, which feels very much like Earth. When you take those on your turn, you take an action, you get the big bold action and they get a little small treat of, well, you know, I've planted 2, but you get to plant 1. So it feels like I get a big thing, you get a little thing. But it's that choice that players are going to have of, am I just helping my opponents a lot here by having played this card, actually activating its abilities? One thing that I didn't necessarily see coming too much before I'd started playing the expansion was how much freer you would be. I often found in the base game you were very sort of, I've only just got enough soil, and someone's doing the plant action but I can't because I don't have enough soil and I don't have enough sprouts to turn in, or maybe I don't want to do that. Well, first of all, being able to save sprouts on your player board, they don't score you points at the end of the game for being there, so you don't want them there too much. But those cubes there, I can trade in for soil. So automatically, maybe I would have lost those in the base game. Now I've got hold of them. I could move them over to a card on a future turn, or I can spend them now for some soil and get something played and that sort of stuff. Getting a lot of seeds, also that's potential soil. You've always sort of got that option. Oh, I've got a few seeds there. That's, 2 a pop worth of soil. You just seem to have the ability to play more often, especially when it comes to, other people almost throwing sprout cubes at you from triggering those abilities that give other players stuff. I just found that in the original experience of the base game, at times you were almost, oh, I just need to somehow eke out a couple more dirt. And in this sort of experience with the expansion, I never felt as I sort of under-resourced almost. I always felt like I had enough to kind of do what I want, and then the choice was, what do I want to actually plant, rather than there's no chance me ever playing this card because I'm never going to get that much soil unless I spend a load of turns to get there. And I think that over time that's going to maybe make it more or less self-evident that maybe like the red action where you get a load of soil, maybe that becomes less effective because you've got other options. You've got the sprout cubes that you can trade to soil. You've got the seeds that you can trade to soil and stuff like that. So maybe that action becomes a little less powerful. Obviously, it's a balance thing. That I've not played this expansion 100 times. I can't tell you if it's underpowered, overpowered. It just feels like some of the balancing of different things has maybe shifted a little bit. I certainly just found that I often had enough resources to play the card I want, rather than go, I need to take a turn to build. Well, you still have to take a turn to build up every now and again, but it wasn't a few turns to build up to do something, which was nice. It meant that the new content didn't add lots of time to the game. It sort of, well, if anything, maybe just meant it was an experience where the choices mattered rather than trying to eke out those resources just to play something. One thing I was hoping from this expansion was that the events were going to be improved. To me, they always feel very lackluster when you get a card that's an event in your hand in the base game, and it's a little bit more of the same from this expansion. I think the event cards have gone in the right direction though. I think often they do seem to be like, you can do something and maybe even your opponents can do something, and it seems like it's actually a benefit, rather than often I found the events being break even. It was like, well, lose a point, spend 3 sprouts and gain 4 growth. And it's like, okay, but unless that growth is actually helping me hit like a fully sized thing, it's 4 points for 4 points. So it's very situational. And I think the events still are situational, but they seem to have just taken one step in the right direction. Personally, I think they needed to have taken like 5 steps in the direction of events being just better, because otherwise I still feel when I draw an event card, oh, that's a waste. That's going to be the next time I have to compost from my hand, that's going to be one of them. The big question, of course, is going to be, as with any expansion, once it's in, is it coming out? And, well, of course, my version at the moment is a prototype. There's a few tweaks that are going to be made. I know there's one symbology change that they are making, and there might be other tweaks. The rules, I don't know at this stage. Well, the prototype might be removed, but I do think the official Earth Abundance would go in and stay in. It feels very much more of the same. And I think that's what I personally wanted from this experience. Yes, there's that new resource of seeds that just means you can store a few more things, or you can switch between, I've got some sprouts, maybe they can become those growth tree trunks and different things like that. You can swap between things a little bit like that. Those seeds aren't that hard to come by necessarily. And, well, you're getting a lot of resources, which means you are playing those like bigger cards, or just playing cards rather than always fighting for one more soil. So there's some tweaks there, but I still feel like it's not changed the game massively. The big thing for some people will be the searching through the deck, right? You couldn't do that really, now you can. But you're only going to be doing that sort of a handful of times throughout the game. So does it take the annoyance of, oh, I'm one card away from that objective card and I'm not drawing any? Certainly. But it also doesn't mean that you're just constantly, every turn going, I want this exact card and it's going to work. Well, no, you're going to get a card that's kind of what you want, but it might not be exactly. Then it's your choice. Do you play it to maybe hit that objective or not? So I think it's very much more giving players choices still in the Earth system without massively changing things. It's still Earth in abundance. And, well, I've had a lot of fun playing it. Hopefully this preview has let you know if the sort of changes, the new additions, are going to be something that you'd vibe with, or if you need it. Like I say, it's not going to drastically change the game for you, but it might just take off a little bit of the sort of rougher edges that it might have frustrated some people. But it's still Earth at its core. Either way, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed, and until next time, have a brilliant Earth-filled good day.